A production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Let's go, baby.
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break.
With Nick Eatman, David Hellman, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Wednesday, October 16th, 2019, Season 15, Episode number 65. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Today we get into the Eagles. We're going to talk a lot about these Philadelphia Eagles, particularly the offense of the Eagles. Nick's going to also break down his storylines for the week that he sets up every week on DallasCowboys.com. And, of course, we have to talk a little bit about an injury. Seems like that's a common topic right now. But yesterday we find out Cowboys lose Tyrone Crawford, it looks like, for the season. What do we know about that? I mean, like, is this something that he came into the year with and just kind of got progressively worse?
This is something that he's had since the end of last year, and he tried his best to get it right. I said it yesterday. Is like as far as like injuries that end your season without being like carted off the field, like I feel like the writing was on the wall for this. Like it's not super surprising.
Yeah.
Tyrone didn't have much of a training camp. He's been trying to rehab this thing since at least the spring, if not even earlier than that. He played the first two games, and when you heard he missed two games after that, and like right after the Washington game, they were like, "Well, Tyrone's going to miss this game. Like it's not even a question of practicing Thursday, Friday. He's just not going to play." You're like, that doesn't seem like a good sign. And He tried to gut it out, couldn't do it. He's going to get surgery. It's fair to say this raises a lot of questions about his future with the team. I think they can save something like $8 million if they cut him this offseason. Obviously, he's a huge locker room guy, big in terms of culture, but you do wonder if maybe this is the end for him.
Tell me what this means for the rest of the roster, what the Cowboys have left, how they fill the void that he's gonna leave behind.
You don't fill that void this year because they don't have a player like him, and that's why he's on the team. I mean, it's not why he's on the team, but that's why he's one of the captains, one of the highest paid players on the defense, because he can do some things that other players don't. And as far as stopping the run and getting some good pass rush, he's tied for the team lead with tackles for loss with 2, with Jalen Smith and Christian Covington.
That tells you a lot right there, given the fact that he hasn't been playing in all the games.
That's a low number for weeks.
It's a low number, and we're not talking about a starting defensive lineman right now that's in that group, because Christian Covington's been a backup. He's played some, I guess, for Woods, but Jalen Smith is a linebacker. You just think you'd get more tackles for loss there. So, I mean, Tristan Hill, I think, will play more. That doesn't. That's going to be a drop off, and then they'll have to figure out, and then Dorrance Armstrong's banged up at defensive end. So, what we were talking before about these injuries come in bunches. There's your 2 defensive ends, Crawford and Armstrong. You have 2 corners banged up, 2 receivers banged up, and obviously the 2 tackles.
And they signed a guy by the name of Justin Hamilton. He's a one technique type of guy, 6'2", 320, like kind of big fatty. That sounds so. Calling a pro athlete a big fatty. He's the trash can full of dirt type of D tackle that a lot of people have said this team needs. But that doesn't necessarily replace Tyrone. That's not really what Tyrone did. So I am curious about that, especially Dorrance Armstrong's dealing with a stinger. He's not practicing today, so there isn't an obvious clear-cut candidate to take those snaps that Tyrone was getting.
Tristan might not play, actually, if you think about it. If this guy's ready to play.
Jason Garrett Jason Garrett anticipates that this will be an opportunity for Hill. But even still.
How much experience does that guy have?
He's played 8 games.
He's been in the 8 career games. He's the classic, on and off of practice squads type of guy. He's been in the league since 15, but he's only played in 8 career games. He's got 3 career tackles.
Yeah, he hasn't done a whole lot, but he's been around.
He's been around since 15, but he's only been on a 53-man roster twice before this. He was at training camp with the Chiefs and he hasn't been on a team since he got cut at the end of the preseason. So
I would think he's practice squad eligible too, don't you think? 8 games?
I don't know, but he's been on a lot of practice squads already to this point.
Oh,
Like he spent a year with Seattle. He's been around, so I don't know if he has eligibility or not.
Going back to training camp, I think we had the conversation a couple times about Kerry Hyder and the fact that they were moving him around between defensive end and defensive
Hyder's
tackle.
a guy that would benefit from this.
Is this a guy that now can slide into a role similar to what Tyrone Crawford was having? And I'm not talking about the production necessarily as much as it is just the flexibility of being able to play all those different positions. Maybe he becomes that hybrid player for them.
Or maybe you just don't use a hybrid player, and that's why Hamilton's here. Is like now you have 2 pretty clear-cut one techniques in Wood. You got Woods and Hamilton now. You got Hill and Malik, and then Covington. Covington could probably do a little bit of both.
But
so you got some guys who could do both in a pinch, right?
Not your end tackle.
Right.
Guys.
I don't know that you have a true end tackle. I mean, I know Hyder could, but we haven't really seen it since the season started.
And you know my thoughts on that. I think as good as it sounds and as good as it is to have on game day, I think it hurts the players' progression too, and it definitely hurts them in terms of their stats and relative to their contract and all that. I mean, every year, I remember asking Tyrone Crawford at least 3 or 4 times since he's been here, what is your position? And he's like, good question. I mean, and it's
Poor
the same.
guy had to keep changing his weight back and forth, dealing with that. And people don't realize, when that came out, the report and the news about him getting the surgery and being out for the whole year, I saw a lot of people on Twitter being like, well, doesn't matter, he wasn't doing anything. And what some of those people don't realize is how he actually impacts the defensive line. And even if he's not the one making tackles or getting to the quarterback, he is still affecting the way that the rest of the guys on the D-line are producing.
He was playing really well last year, and I thought, I thought, we said it yesterday, I thought that was a big issue this year. You think that I was implying?
Nick knew something.
No, I didn't. I really didn't.
The way he was going at it yesterday, it kind of took me aback. And then afterwards, when I heard the news, I was like, "Yeah, you
thought the implier was implier strikes back."
Yeah,
the writing.
I didn't know that. Yeah. I was shocked to hear that.
I'm not saying that I knew, but the writing has been on the wall. You have, I talked to Tyrone in the cafeteria back during July, and kind of got the sense that I was like, I thought you would be further along with this than you are, and not in an accusatory way, but just kind of this is a bigger problem than I thought it was. And then,
he admitted,
yeah, just kind of still working on it, still really grinding hard in my rehab. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that's where this was. Yeah. And then he didn't have a training camp. And again, you play 2 games and immediately have to sit down, and it's not like he might be ready to play. It's like, no, he's not going to play. Yeah. You just sort of, I didn't know he was going to get shut down for the season, but I was like, this is this is more than a,
he
a bump
really
or a
did
bruise.
try.
Yeah.
He tried.
He's, Brandon Carr, before he left for Baltimore, he bestowed the crown on Tyrone of good dude, good player, will never get credit for what he did because of what he made.
They're gonna hate you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you go. Your payment, your repayment for all the money you made is nobody's gonna like you.
And my hope is based upon that, they can find a contract that's a little more suitable to his role.
Yes.
And keep him here, because I think he's a valuable type player to have. He's just making enough money to where he gets unfair criticism, in my opinion. And maybe it's not worth the money that they're giving him for what they're asking of him. Maybe they get a deal that actually works for both sides that is a little more commensurate with what they're asking.
I'll tell you this: much like Travis Frederick, he's not gonna go anywhere. He is a big part of that culture, that locker room. He's gonna be in every meeting. He's gonna be coaching the other D linemen. There's no obligation to be here when you go on IR, right. And he's gonna be right in the thick of everything, just like Travis was.
All right, let's go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, Nick will tell us a little bit about the storylines this week, Cowboys versus Eagles, and then we'll get into breaking down this Eagles offense with Dave. We'll do that when we come right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
While a player can look good on paper, it's when he's out on the field that you really find out what he's made of. That's why the Cowboys rely on more than just stats and scouting reports when building their team. When picking a tractor, it's why you should rely on more than just specs and features. You've got to take it out and put it to the test. The Cowboys did when they named John Deere their official tractor. Experience one for yourself. Visit myjohndeeredealer.com/football.
Do you want the most interesting, up-to-the-minute Dallas Cowboys news straight from the Star in Frisco? How about exclusive and on command? That's right, news and nuggets you can't find anywhere else. With our exclusive Cowboys content on Alexa, you can have all the answers, secrets, stories, and more. What's Stephen Jones thinking during a game? What's Joe Looney's favorite pregame meal? We take your questions to Cowboys players and coaches, and you can hear the answers directly back to you. Just say, Alexa, open Dallas Cowboys.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
The excitement of Dallas Cowboys football is back at AT&T Stadium.
The place is going crazy in Arlington, Texas.
Don't miss your chance to see the Cowboys live when they host their NFC East rivals, the Eagles, Giants, and Redskins, plus the Green Bay Packers and more.
Elliott works his way through and walks the dog.
Single game tickets are on sale now. Get them before they're gone.
First and goal, quarterback sneak. Prescott pushes up the middle. Touchdown.
Visit DallasCowboys.com to get your tickets today.
Back to the break.
Second segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We're talking Cowboys versus Eagles. Nick, set this thing up for us. There's a story you write on DallasCowboys.com each week, laying out the 5 major storylines for each team. Let's talk first about those storylines for the Eagles.
For the Eagles,
yes.
Well, obviously their head coach Doug Peterson. You know, he had some headlines this week coming out and saying, basically saying that, hey, we're going to go down there to Dallas and we're going to win this game, and when we do, we're going to be, first place in the NFC East. I mean, I thought it was right on what he was saying about, he's definitely able to say that, and he did retract it a little bit and say that, hey, we're playing for first place. Dallas is tough, and they're in the same boat as we are. So he kind of retracted a little bit, but I think he's got his message sent to his team for sure, and everyone's kind of on alert with that. And NBC, who's doing the game, probably loves it as well.
Yeah, essentially, he said publicly what coaches say to their teams privately every day, right? We're going to win this game, so it is what it is.
Yeah, Dave loves to cover a coach like that.
I do.
They cut their linebacker.
You're like the third person to tell me that today. Sorry.
Never mind. Go ahead.
Taylor Lindsay.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It's probably true. Cover 4. Barry doesn't care about that stuff.
No.
The Eagles cut Zach Brown because, in my opinion, because he's not playing very well. But it really was convenient. He did say Kirk Cousins, the weakest player of the Vikings team. He goes out and throws for 333, 4 touchdowns in the win. They were teammates together in Washington. The Eagles decided to cut him. I bet it's because he's not playing well and not because of that comment.
I have a hard time believing Doug Peterson's willing to say we're going to go down there and win this game, but he was so mad at Zach Brown for calling him the weak link that he cut him.
No, it was about the play. It was about the play. But it was hilarious. I personally found very amusing watching him after the game, and they're asking him about his comments, and he's like, I'm just here to talk about the game. You weren't just here to talk about the game before the game, so you need to talk about.
You don't get to do that.
Yeah, right. It was hilarious, though.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
All right, the Eagles are getting some cornerback help back this week. Ronald Darby's been out with a hamstring injury, and Jalen Mills has been out since last year with the Liz Frank injury. He's working back into practice, so they're getting 2 corners. They need it. They're 29th in the NFL right now in pass defense. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little more tomorrow. Desean Jackson, he's been a Cowboys killer. He's got more receiving yards against the Cowboys than any other team in his career. 1,100.
Is he back this week?
He is
something to watch.
Working himself back. Abdomen injury. He's working himself back in. He's not going to practice today, but he could play in this game. And I needed a 5th point, and I went with the fact that they're very similar to the Cowboys in scoring, but really the 5th point should be, and I'll let Dave speak to this, they've ruled out their tackle, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
that's huge.
Jason Peters.
Well, it is until he tells you who they're going to replace him with.
Well, and I mean, kudos to the Eagles. They're really smart. They drafted an offensive tackle in the 1st round, knowing that Jason Peters is ancient by NFL
and he's
standards.
Probably better than Jason Peters.
That's the thing. Well, no, his name's Andre Dillard. He came out of Washington State. I didn't look before the show, but I believe he was the first tackle drafted in this class. But Which, I mean, maybe he'll be great, but
he's not Brandon Knight.
The report on him, wow.
No, I'm just what I mean by that is you're not talking about a guy that was undrafted versus a guy that was drafted as the first tackle in the draft. There's a difference.
The report on
you said it like you were like he's no Brandon Knight.
No. And I was not meaning any disrespect. I'm just saying there's a big difference between those two kinds of players.
The report on Dillard is that he's very talented but pretty raw. I mean, the Eagles drafted late. They went to the second round of the playoffs. This is not a guy they got in the top 10. This is not Joe Thomas. So I'm not ready to say that he's ready to step in and be dominant against Robert Quinn from day one. But you got to give the Eagles credit for foreseeing this as well as they did. And yes, I'm sure a raw first-round pick is still more capable of stepping in than a lot of other guys that could, including an undrafted rookie free agent. Yeah. So the Eagles' offense is very talented, but for a variety of reasons, it has not translated in the way that you would expect at this point in the season. Some of that's their fault, and some of it's not. They're 20th overall. They're just kind of middling. Like they're 16th passing the ball, they're 11th running the ball. They are 9th scoring. So even with all of their problems, they still don't struggle to put up points more often than not.
They're one of 3 teams in the league that's got 20 points or more in every game.
And should be more, in all honesty. And that's the thing is, like, Dak is a lightning rod. Carson Wentz might be getting it even worse because he's playing pretty well this year. He's completing 61% of his passes. He's got 1450 through 6 games, which is just slightly behind Dak. 12 touchdowns, 3 picks. He is only averaging 6.8 yards per attempt, which is interesting to me because Dink and Dunk Dak is over here averaging 9. So, don't let narratives or don't let facts get in the way of your narratives is what I should say.
Last week, it was the vertical passing game of the Cowboys. Is that now he's Dink and Dunk Dak?
No, that's what people always call. They're like, Dink and Dunk Dak. He never throws it. Yeah, it was very tongue-in-cheek.
Okay.
Dak's averaging 9 yards per attempt. He's anything but.
Right.
But Carson Wentz is settling for fewer yards per attempt than Dak Prescott to this point. A big part of that is probably because his receivers can't hold on to the football. They lead the league in drops, 17. Actually, Dak is right there behind him. So it speaks something to what Dak's been able to do, especially not always having the people he'd prefer. But yeah, Desean Jackson's been missing for most of the season. Alshon Jeffrey's just now getting back. Nelson Aguilar's struggles catching the ball have been immortalized by that hilarious dude who saved the babies from the fire in Philadelphia a few weeks ago.
Still called him out.
But Wentz has not had a ton of help in the wide receiver department because of D-Jax's absence. They drafted a kid named J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who dropped the game-winning touchdown against Detroit in week 3.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Collins has had problems with drops. And even then, even when they're not dropping, I would say his receivers haven't been helping him out. It's been all over Twitter this week. Wentz threw a dime to Alshon Jeffrey last week in Minnesota. Jeffrey kind of leaned the wrong way. I mean, he was 2 yards behind his coverage and wound up running out of bounds on what could have been an absolutely easy touchdown. Just stuff like that. Like, Wentz is not playing poorly at all. I just don't think he's getting a ton of help. Probably the way they're offsetting that is they have 2 very, very good tight ends. The Eagles actually run more 12 personnel than any team in the league, 33%. They have Zach Ertz, who is 1A or 1B with Kelsey in terms of best tight end. And then Dallas Goedert, the second-round pick, coming into his own, playing pretty well. I would bet they're going to lean on both of those guys pretty heavily, even if Desean Jackson comes back. Like, you're going to have to account for both of them. Jordan Howard is the starting running back. He's very good, but the guy, Miles Sanders was one of my absolute favorite players in this draft. The Eagles are struggling to get him involved, which I think is a gigantic mistake. He's averaging 9 carries a game and 2 catches a game, but he's explosive. He's averaging 2 catches a game, but he's averaging 17 yards a catch. Last week in Minnesota, they sent him on a wheel route right through the center of the defense. And again, 2 yards behind the coverage, easy 35-yard touchdown. Linebacker didn't stand a chance. It's the type of stuff I'd love to see the Cowboys do with Tony Pollard. but that's a topic.
Especially on a week when you have some injuries at wide receiver.
That's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
They're very good at converting third downs, 50%. Doug Peterson, we know he's aggressive. We all watched that Super Bowl. They went for it on a 4th and 2 at midfield in Minnesota. They actually didn't get it, but they're willing to. Like, this is a team that their coach is, I think, a little bit out in front of popular coaching tactics. So,
well, I mean, let's be fair. Garrett does that.
I would not like Garrett
goes for 4th and 1 at the Saints, and he gets it, and Zeke fumbles. I mean,
that's fair.
I mean, he goes for it.
I think Peterson's more aggressive.
No doubt about it.
And
he's probably the most aggressive in the league when it comes to it, maybe outside of the Patriots. Yeah, they seem like they do it quite a bit.
And there's the whole thing with, you saw them. They went for 2 when they were up. They scored to go up 7 against Green Bay and went for 2, which I thought was honestly ludicrous.
I did too. Yeah.
But that's the thing. Analytics people tell you that's the thing to do, is like that's when you have the best chance of making it, and you can make it a 2-possession game. But I just take the easy points. Take the easy point that's going to put pressure on the other team to convert a 2-point conversion, right? Am I crazy for thinking that?
Unless you weren't 3 or 4 years ago. But now with extra points are kind of dicey too. It's almost like, it's not as easy as we'll just get making the extra point. Maybe it's you're like, what? I feel just as confident that we're going to run this route here to Jeffrey, and we'll go up 9 and put the game away. As if it's a slam dunk extra point, but I don't know how many kickers in the league are slam dunk extra point guys. Who they have? Elliott. His name is Jake Elliott.
Jake. Oh boy, yeah, Jake Elliott. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a team that's really good in the red zone, if you have a team that's really good in short yardage, then the argument, especially if you have a kicker that's kind of then I think you can make the argument that you should go for 2 pretty often because, like you said, the likelihood of converting one is about the same as converting the other, and you do put an added pressure on the opponent if you can get it.
So, honestly, I think they're playing better than the Dallas defense, but it reminds me of the Dallas defense in the sense of like there's talent everywhere that hasn't necessarily translated to them being as fantastic as they should be. I mean, they're only one of 3. Nick, you said one of 3 teams in the league that scored 20 every week.
Yeah, and it's Seattle, Baltimore, and them. So Seattle's good. Baltimore's kind of good.
But even
Baltimore's leading their division. So
they're still having they're still having success, but they do not have that they do not have that explosive offense yet. And I think it's a big part has to do with the supporting cast. Like you don't have that guy that can take the top off the defense like Desean Jackson. Right. You don't have just a reliable guy that's just gonna catch it. I mean, a guy that you can count on to make tough plays. Because Aguilar, he's had his moments. They get him the ball a variety of interesting ways, but he's not reliable. The rookie Arcega-Whiteside doesn't seem like he's ready for it yet. But man, and you don't need me to tell you this, but Carson Wentz he's really impressive. He's got some Aaron Rodgers to his game in the sense of his arm is incredible. He made a throw against Minnesota in this game last week. He was having the D tackle pushed back into him, and I'm not exaggerating, literally falling away, and just flips his wrist and throws it 25 yards to Aguilar. And, I mean, it was completed, put it right out in front of him, and the coverage was good, too. Like, his arm is just scary talented. Yeah. Is way better of an athlete than I would say he gets credit for, being a 6'4" white quarterback or 6'3", however tall he is. I mean, he looks smoother running the read option than Dak does, in my opinion. Like he can do that type of stuff. Obviously, he got hurt doing that a couple years ago, so you want to probably be careful with that. But he can hurt you with his athleticism, not just running, but extending plays too. So he's going to be tough to account for.
I was just thinking when you talked about Aaron Rodgers. Did y'all watch the Lions game the other night?
Yes.
The throw that he made to Jimmy Graham late in the game. Yeah. Graham coming across the field, and there's a corner coming off at the ball. It's like that ball's got to be absolutely perfect, not just really good throw. It's got to be absolutely perfect, or it's picked.
Yep.
Just the confidence that he has to make.
And he put
throw.
It right on the. I mean, like right on the money.
And listen, everybody knows how I feel about Dak. I think the world of him, but like that's the difference between the guys that get drafted in the top 5, and people thought Rodgers should have been the number 1 overall pick and a 4th round pick. Like Dak's great. Not very many guys have that just God-given ability where you can be getting murdered and put it on a dime 40 yards away. Like that's
even when you're not getting murdered. I mean, you think about this last game, and I think a lot of those drops were on the receivers because they got to make them. But how many times this season have we said, but it could have been a better ball, right? That's just Dak's not the guy that's going to always just put it right on the target where it needs to be.
He needs great
and that makes it a little tougher. Yeah, it makes it a little tougher. He needs receivers that can make those tough catches.
Aaron Rodgers just needs Alan Lazard to go out there and make the run the route.
As I say, I mean, Dak's capable of it. The Beasley throw against New York, and he's thrown some dimes this season. Yeah. The one to Gallup against the Giants comes to mind, but like Wentz and Rodgers just seem to do that type of stuff 5 or 6 times a game.
Yeah. Hey, the other thing I was going to mention and throw it to you, I know you've watched a few of their games. It seems like the best that this offense has been is when Desean Jackson was in there, particularly in that first game. At the second half, I think, was when he really kind of went off and they started really just having all these bombs. How much does that concern you, knowing that the Cowboys have some injury concerns in the secondary?
Oh.
Knowing that last week they give up the big play. How much does that all play into this thing if Desean Jackson's back?
That should terrify anybody. I mean, the best corner and then your starting nickel corner, Anthony Brown, are both not practicing today. They have hamstrings. So even if they can play, that doesn't sound – and that's Desean Jackson to a T, right? People are going to scoff when I say this, but like I would try to put Cheeto on him as often as I could just because Cheeto has – I mean, he ran 23 miles an hour to catch Saquon Barkley. Like he's got that speed and athleticism to keep up with him. He might not win every battle, but you would think he's not going to get torched, whereas a guy with a gimpy hamstring might.
That's true. And then if Byron Jones can play, which I think Jones has the best chance to play of those two corners, he can go up against Aguilar. But if you have to start – Jordan Lewis in this game, and go up. And I like Jordan Lewis. I mean, I think he's playing well. But I mean, not Aguilar. I meant to say Alshon Jeffrey. You put Alshon Jeffrey against Jordan Lewis.
You don't love that height matchup.
I wonder if the Cowboys are going to have to make a move at corner. Like
Alumba try to get him up.
Well, you got Alumba, you got Mike Jackson.
But let's say Byron plays. Who's still better, though? A banged-up Byron Jones or a healthy Cheeto?
Well,
I don't think you have to make that choice because Cheeto's going to play regardless. I mean,
yeah, but I'm saying in this scenario, like, who would you prefer putting on there?
I mean, I'll take my chances with Cheeto. Yeah, again, just purely on health, speed, athleticism, straight line speed, which that's what scares you about Desean Jackson. And then Byron, if he can play, he's got the length and the athleticism. Like Jeffrey's game is more about length and size. I mean, I'll take my chances with that.
Do you think in this instance, though?
Here's another big issue, too, is that this is where they hurt you with their tight ends because Zach Ertz is the guy that you would like to put a cornerback on if you can. Byron Jones would be perfect to go up against Zach Ertz.
Even though do that now.
No, not really.
Yeah.
So
Brian actually wrote about this for the site today. And it's don't kill the messenger, but it's probably going to be Jeff Heath that has to draw that assignment. And Heath made the play of that game in Philly last year, where he broke up the 4th down pass that kind of killed Philly's chances of coming back to tie the game. Zach Ertz still had 14 catches for, I don't remember off the top of my head, but he had a nice day.
That's exactly where I was going to go with that. If you're talking about letting Desean Jackson beat you on a 59-yard touchdown or letting Zach Ertz catch 4 or 5 passes, and that means they still have to drive the ball down the field without making mistakes on a long drive, I'm going to take that. So in this instance, I still say, do what you got to do to make sure Jackson doesn't beat you deep. Like, that's the first priority,
exactly.
I think.
And
then you deal with whatever else you got to deal with underneath.
And the irony is that Cheeto contributed to a 92-yard touchdown just last week.
Yeah.
But I still think it's your best bet.
But does that also make the Cowboys change a little bit? They like to play that single safety high. Does this force them, in this instance, to say, hey, this is a week we might need to keep both our safeties back rather than bringing a safety down because we got to be able to protect the back end of the field?
Ertz caught 14 balls for 145 and 2 touchdowns in that game.
He'll catch 14 more if you do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
a tough. Like, this is one of probably the most well-rounded offenses the Cowboys have played to this point.
They get beat. They get beat by the bad Falcons. They get beat. I mean, so.
But again, I mean, and you're right. They got beat bad by Minnesota. Minnesota beat them by 18 points.
Yeah.
But there are plays they left out there. I mean, everybody knows Aguilar drops a walk-in touchdown that would have swung that game. Jeffrey runs out of bounds on what would have been a crazy play.
And by the way, the guy that made that first game, their offense looked so good, wasn't there. And that's the part I think is the big key here. Desean Jackson plays, it changes everything about how you have to defend their offense.
What would you want to do with Jalen? Do you want to play him closer to the line or push him back a little more?
I don't love
Jalen out in space covering
right now
downfield. Like I personally don't think that's a good thing for them.
I'm laughing because it's like my answer is I don't like him at the line of scrimmage. They're going up against defensive tackles, so I don't.
So where do you like him? I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, we probably are giving Jalen. We're probably giving Jalen a little bit too much of a hard time. I know I've been pretty adamant about that yesterday, but all that being said, I still don't like him necessarily in coverage situations and playing in space downfield very much. I'd much rather see him just being a linebacker going sideline to sideline. Actually, I like when he blitzes. He tends to have a pretty decent knack for blitzing. So use him in that role.
I know, and people criticize me because I make it sound like the other team's unbeatable sometimes, but you have to consider the Eagles are capable of running the ball really well too. They killed the Packers. They averaged 5 yards a carry, ran for 175 in that game. That's before the Packers game. That's all we talked about was, well, the Eagles proved you can run on these guys. And so with the way the Cowboys have played run defense, you can't afford to give up that part of the game because Sanders and Howard are both really good. It's not like this offense is purely a passing attack. Right. And Wentz only threw for 160 in that game.
That's the thing about this offense. Like I said, it's well-rounded. They have a lot of different weapons at a lot of different positions, and they force you to choose which one you're going to defend and pay extra attention to. And when you do that, they have the ability to be able to take advantage of something else. Whether they do or don't, that's the issue.
I have a hard time believing that the winner of this game will have fewer than 34 points.
I agree. This is going to be a barn burner.
It's going to be a track meet.
You have a hard time believing a lot of things.
I do.
You've been saying that a lot in this show.
I have a few.
Hard time
thanks for calling out my radio tendencies on air, Amber. Thanks.
Jerry would be so proud.
I do. I repeat myself a lot. Sorry.
All right. We're going to go and take our final break. We'll come back. We'll get some questions from you guys. Call us. The number's 888-855-2297. Again, it is 888-855-2297, or you can hit me on Twitter at Derek Eagleton. We'll do that when we come right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not too...
It's right above the subway!
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus!
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store and learn how to buy one smartphone and get a second one on us. Based on GWS One score, September 2018.
It's time for Tailgate with the OtterBox boys.
OtterBox? The makers of those crazy protective phone cases?
The one and only. They're also wild about protecting parking lot parties from sad drinks. It's why they made elevation tumblers.
Rumor around the crockpot is they're made from stainless steel with a copper lining to keep temps hot or cold.
True. They even come in 7 different sizes, up to 64 ounce, the growler.
I like how OtterBox drinks. Thanks.
And that's been Tailgating with the OtterBox boys. Check out all the colors and sizes of their elevation tumblers at OtterBox.com.
A man's Stetson doesn't just protect him from life's elements. It projects an unstoppable and legendary spirit, just like the men wearing silver and navy on the field every Sunday. Since 1865, Stetson hats are American-made with pride right here in Texas. They are still the official crown of all self-respecting Cowboys. And Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find Stetson hats in the Pro Shop or at Stetson.com today.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with sideline access and photo ops with current players, alumni, and cheerleaders. That's not all, though. You'll get to talk X's and O's with Senior Director of Player Personnel Will McClay, and of course with yours truly, me, Brian Broaddus. You can trust the official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and with us, you'll travel like a pro. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
Back to the break.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Nick, what you got?
I got free to play. It's a predictive game that you don't want to forget about on game days because you got a lot going on in game days. You want to make sure you remember to play.
I forgot last week. This week, we're going to do it on Friday on the show.
Kind of forgot.
Along with all you guys that are listening to us, we'll all do it together.
Yeah. And we got a little trash talk going around in the office.
Yeah, and I don't like that.
It comes down to it comes down to what you have to do on Sunday. But you can win $10,000 grand prize.
It's true. You have to keep updating every quarter.
Yeah. You do. You got to stay on top of it.
Fans, you got to be 21 also, and also you have to update it every quarter, and you have to be logged in to play. You have to download the app. You have to pay attention every quarter, and you have to access on game day every quarter.
Sounds like a lot of work, but you can win up to.
You can win $1,000 a week, and the grand prize is 10 G's.
I need that.
Do you?
Let's go.
I thought you were paid. See, I thought with the nice clothes over there, I thought you were like.
Let's have this conversation in your office later.
Do we need to have this conversation? I don't really want to have this conversation.
You than me.
Yeah, good point.
Talk about that.
All right, here we go. Let's take some questions. You guys call us 888-855-2297. You can also hit us on Twitter at Derek Eagleton. I'll take those questions there. We have a question from B.A. Vandermuse. He says, would the defense be better with Rod calling the plays over Richard? I think Rod is better at knowing the flow of the game. What are your thoughts? Just if you took it from a big picture of what was happening last year versus what's happening this year, is there anything that you can put your finger on as far as how the game's being called, things that they're doing strategically that may account for the differences in what we're seeing?
He was calling last year, right?
It's a poorly kept secret that Chris Richard was calling the defense last year.
Right.
Rod Marinelli, I mean, tremendous respect for him, but since Chris Richard got here, his focus has been the defensive line. He's the rush coach. That's what he does. So, I know, like, people want answers. It's weird. Like, the personnel is mostly the same. You could argue it's better because Robert Quinn is here, and they're not playing as well. And I'm sure they're just as flummoxed by it as we are. But I mean, I don't see this huge difference in tendencies. Honestly, even you go back to around this time last year, they were still making some of the same mistakes. Seattle torched them on long touchdowns twice in Week 3 last year. Detroit got them. Golden Tate was still in Detroit at the time, and he just abused the secondary for 2 long touchdowns. So, you know, it's easy to think, and they were good last year, but it's easy to think that everything was perfect last year, and that's not necessarily the case. They're playing poorly. Doesn't mean they will continue to play poorly. Obviously, the hope is that they don't, but I don't think there's like this magical pill or, you know, somebody else call the defense and it'll magically get better. I just think across the board, they're not playing as well as they were, and they need to.
And then the relationship between those two, I mean, from what I've seen, it appears to be really good. Like, they work well together. It's not that one of them just overtakes one role completely and just has his own voice, and that's what it is. I think that Rod has allowed Chris Richard to do his own thing, and they do it mutually, and it showed that it worked last year. Just like Dave, I can't really figure out exactly what is happening this year, because when you talk about the personnel, it's still the same. And if anything, after a year, it should be better.
The one thing I would point out there, though, is I think what we don't really always factor in is probably the two most important positions on any defense, your pass rusher and your top cornerback. Both those instances, those guys came into season coming off injuries.
Yeah.
They didn't practice throughout training camp, and both of them have at different times shown up on the injury report this year, right?
Yeah.
So you start thinking about that from that perspective. I think, yeah, you would expect that it's the same. You would expect the personnel is the same. The fact of the matter is those players may not be as ready to do the things they were doing last year because of injury and because they missed training camp, right? And that may be something that takes a little bit of time for them to get to the point where they're playing at that level. Maybe they're not there yet.
And you know, it comes with the dinner of being an NFL player, unfortunately, is we spend all offseason like, will they be ready for the season opener? They got to be ready for the season opener. They got to be ready. And then they're ready, but they're not necessarily ready.
Right.
And their play suffers for it. But what else? As DeMarcus Lawrence has said, nobody cares. Nobody feels sorry for you. You're handsomely paid. And they're honestly, Byron and DeMarcus, that's fine. What about the other 9? I mean, it's a team sport. There's 9 other guys that are.
Well, we already talked about the fact that I don't think right now you could make the claim that Xavier, that Cheeto, that Heath, that any of these guys, that Jalen or Van Der Esch are playing better than they played last year.
That's my point.
Probably playing worse. So it's easy to say the personnel's the same, but they're not necessarily performing better.
Right.
Or even the same.
And I just, I don't think it's I think it's as simple as they're just not playing well. Like, It's not like, oh, somebody can come in here and call something better and it'll get better. I think they all just need to hunker down and play better defense.
And you know, you're talking about the last 8 games, I guess, of last year. I mean, I don't remember where they ranked after the 6th game after they beat the Jaguars, but I bet it's not as good as what it is this year. It's just the perception of them. I mean, they just haven't. They haven't played well. The Jets are not a good offense, and they let them make too many plays, and they didn't win. They didn't take advantage of when the defense played well. But when you just look at the stats, I mean, the stats show that this is a good defense. That's why numbers can lie, because the stats show that overall this is the 9th best defense in yards. And then you look at points, it's the 10th best defense in points. So it shows that it's pretty good. Yeah. But it hasn't been good enough for an offense that's been just as inconsistent. And they're not matching up well in the right games except for the Dolphins.
I feel like there's probably a lot of teams in the NFL that would take what the Dallas defense has done. But the expectations, and rightfully so, like the expectations are higher than that based on what they did. And again, somebody else, I had this conversation before the press conference today, is like, they're not bad. They just don't do anything great, and
not even one. Like they don't have that one
and
thing.
Not
that
only
really
that,
great
they
at.
don't do anything explosive. Again, like the leader on the team has 2 tackles for loss.
Right.
I've seen Tank do that in one game before.
Yeah. You're right.
They don't do that. They don't stuff the run. They don't get takeaways. All that stuff.
And they need to be better because of the offense. Like they had a really good performance in New Orleans, but they needed to be great and outstanding, and don't hold them to 4 field goals. Hold them to 3, and then they could have won. So this defense is not playing as well, but the offense has been crap at times, especially in the first half. So it needs to be better than that. That's
Can
why
I ask a question? Sure. I don't know if you guys talked about it yesterday. You know the clip that was going around on social media with the players coming off the field and Garrett?
Yeah.
Y'all talked about it yesterday?
I don't think we did.
Okay, well, I haven't been in the locker room just yet. Even after the game, I was listening to Jerry, so I didn't go inside. Do you guys feel or think or even are having that perception of the team kind of starting to give up on Garrett?
I would have to see more than that to
more
make
than
me believe
Malik Collins, who you can't get him to he's not that outgoing anyways. And for him to see it, maybe he saw it, maybe he didn't. I don't know.
It's a 5-second clip of
it is, but you know how people react.
No,
to
of course
thing.
I do, and it's ridiculous. Which I think we probably take that for granted because of how close we are. Where all of us are like, that's stupid. But I mean, it is a valid talking point among fans and media right now. I saw it as 4 extremely pissed off and frustrated professionals who are like probably more focused on whatever crap happened behind them than who's trying to high five them.
Right.
I don't ascribe a lot to it at all. And
look at it again. Was it more than one? Was it like 4 of them?
I thought it was 2 of them.
It was
I
2 or
couldn't
3
really
guys.
tell, yeah.
Malik is the one who's really obvious in the frame. I don't buy it. And again, we talked about this last year when they fell to 3-5, and we had the same conversation. And what happened after that? Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that they're going to go on a 7-game winning streak, but I think about the Green Bay game that got Wade fired. I wasn't even here for that. Mm-hmm. But when that happens, that's when not because Malik Collins doesn't feel like giving out a high five.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like in that game, it got to a point where it was literally, and Nick, you were there too. To me, it felt like as the game was going on that more and more of the team was just kind of like not fighting. Like, and that's Jason's whole big thing of fight.
Right.
Like in these games that they've lost, these aren't games where they're just like not fighting. They're in these games even at the end. They just haven't figured out how to win, and that's a problem.
They pick it up at the end.
But that's a problem that they have to take so long to get there, and it's a problem that they're not figuring out how to win it. Mm-hmm. But that is a different thing than they're not fighting during the game. That's a whole different thing, right?
But whose job is it to get them ready to play?
You're absolutely right. And that's a problem. That's absolutely a problem.
It has been a problem.
Yeah, I don't mind them. Like, figuring out how to win at the end is not the issue these 3 weeks. It's being present for the start. And criticize Garrett all you want for that.
Absolutely. That's all fair.
Huge
that's all fair.
part of the job.
But I think the reason why, my personal belief is the reason why Wade got fired is because the team was no longer willing to fight. They were basically, they get down and they just got
We're
beat
not
up.
at that point.
And
we're not at that point.
Let's not forget, too, that the night before the game, Rob and I were out at a restaurant.
A watering hole?
Yeah. Well, we saw his son, Wes Phillips. He was the tight ends coach or receivers coach or whatever at the time. And he was like, yeah, it's just been tough. We lose tomorrow. Dad's getting fired. And we were like,
at that point, they're 1-6.
We're looking at each other like, he's like, oh, you don't have to be awkward about it. Everyone knows. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then they lost 45-7, and then they're like, yeah, and he was fired.
This is a conversation for another day, but like, it's hard to put a finger on like what that point is for this team. I mean, I think everybody last year at 3-5 was kind of like, ooh, this could be it, and then it turned around. I don't feel like we're there right now, but I do wonder how far away that is. You know?
Agree.
I mean, you lose this game and go into the bye. I don't think Jason Garrett's getting fired, but it's not crazy to be wondering about it. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. The part of it is, whether it is or isn't, it's definitely going to be the talking point.
Sure.
And so that's going to be swirling around the team if they should lose this game. And that's 2 weeks of it swirling around the team. And that's where you have to worry about, just as the mentality of a team dynamic, how much does that start to seep into guys' heads? And when they're going off to talk to their, spending a little time away from the team, and their buddies are talking to them and their family's talking to them, how much of that starts to creep in their head? Man, you're head coach, man. What's wrong with your head coach? That kind of stuff is the stuff you worry about when you're dealing with team dynamics. All right, we appreciate you guys joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow, 11:45 for Nick Eatman, Dave Hellman, Amber Garcia. I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?